I got this one here with the sort of built-in crossbar. This one here, I got the fisherman's set up here where I got a little snare jammed into a wedge and a stick. And I got one over here, which is just your sort of standard, you know, we got a stick and a snare attached to the stick. Alright, so I'm back here in a spot where I saw some sign, and I'm going to set some snares. And I thought I would show 3 different ways to do it. So the first is one of my most favorite ways to do it because it's convenient, and if the snow gets deep you can readjust them, reposition them, and that sort of thing. I've already sort of tied these up partly, so just a question of making the circle. Right, you should be big enough for your fist to go through, a little bend. And then what I like to do is attach it. I got a piece of just hardwood. This is maple. Okay, you notice I moved every little branch, so there's nothing for the rabbits to feed on. It's a nice clean branch, and about 2/3, you know, and this thing's about 4 feet long. About 2/3 of the way up, that's where I attach it to the tree, to the stick. All right, wrap it around about 3 times. All right, then just give her about 2 twists. 1, 2. Okay, and up and out of the way. All right, so now you got a nice snare. You want to make sure it's nice and round and smooth, so you can get a nice, quick, easy lock up when the rabbit engages it. Okay, now this is your trail. You can see there's some tracks in the trail right there. Right, so in terms of setting it, it's dead easy. If you find a spot where if the ground's not frozen, I mean, if the ground's frozen, this will not work. But if you can get it in, right, you just put it on an angle. If the snow gets high, it's very easy to adjust. Okay. All right, so that's all set. You know, there's a bit of a guide stick on either side. It's just a natural, there's a leaf right here. So it's a natural chin lifter, right? So that's all set. The rabbit should not be able to pull that out. It'll freeze in place in the ground, right? So it should just stay where it is. Okay, so that's all done. Right, so it's a really easy way to set the snare. And if there's a rabbit in there, when you don't want to deal with the rabbit, you just pull the whole stick out, and it's easy to deal with it. So this is the way I tend to like to do it, because it's just so quick and easy. Okay, another technique people like to use is to just stick it in the ground and the snare is sort of like sideways. See, I like it like this sort of thing. If the rabbit goes in here and it struggles, there's a probability that it'll get hung up on this crossbar up here. It'll be very difficult for the thing to move around too much. Sometimes they get in, they flip around a lot, and they just get all tangled up. And that's good, because then they can't break the snare and get free. Or when using snare wire, if it gets bent enough back and forth, it'll break, right? So, and that's what you don't want. You don't want the rabbit running around with a snare around its neck, right? It should come off eventually over time. It'll just fuss with it and it'll eventually come off, but who wants that? And the whole point of snaring is to bring them home, right? Sort of thing. So I like this where the snare is sort of above, because chances are when they struggle, the rabbit will just flip up over any sort of, you know, head bar you got there, right? It's a head bar, makes the rabbit push its head down. But anyway, another really popular way, and usually when you see snaring, you know, described in survival manuals, this is the technique they show, which is probably the one I never use. This is why, like, I should do a video on this, but you know, you read a survivor manual and it shows you what snaring is, and it looks pretty easy, and it is easy in principle, right? Stick a noose on a path that an animal uses, but there's a lot of trial and error in setting up a snare, right? There's a lot to learn. All right, so anyway, this is a technique they often show where it's on a stick and it's sideways. Okay, so I mean, if you're going to do that, I would say get a nice springy sapling type stick, because if the rabbit gets in, I mean, they're going to struggle when they get in there, right? And you don't want the rabbit, you don't want the thing that's attached to you to have no give at all. You want it to have a bit of give, like a fishing rod. That's why this sort of, this diagonal crossbar is so great, because it moves and it gives. But anyway, the other way people tend to like to do, I get this on camera here, is they just, so I got a spot like this here where I know they go through, and they just stick that in like that. I have to fence it in a little bit, but that's sideways, right? So I'll add some fencing in there to guide the rabbit's head into that thing, right? By fencing I just mean little sticks, but that'll work. But it's not as reliable as having it attached to a thing overhead, because they'll tend to flip up and get into it. The final technique, which I'm going to do on this run here, is what you most often see people doing and doing in manuals, and it'll work, where you just attach the snare to an existing tree. You find a run, you follow the run till you see a nice tree that's sort of got, you know, it's live and it's got the strength, and you attach it to a tree like this. Okay, and that can work, but this is the most likely way to have a snare break off. A tree like this, it's got no give at all, right? So if the rabbit gets in there, and it's I mean, some of them are choked out very quickly and easily, but some of them are just really tough, or maybe they got an arm or a paw in there, right? So they'll break it off with something like this, because it just has no give at all. So the all the fighting, all that stress and energy is put into the wire, and the wire will give up. So in an ideal world, you want the thing it's attached to have some give. So I'm going to show you another way to do this. Just got to set it up for a second here, so I'll show you in a minute. All right, so you can see here I got a very, very short piece of snaring wire. This is a great way to do it if you're trying to conserve materials, right? So this snare would be about 7 inches shorter than the typical one. So I got the snare set up, and you just take the end piece and twist that around a few times. Everything is so much harder when you're filming. So you twist that around so it won't come free, right? I got this string attached to it. All right, so I'm just going to tie a knot on here. That won't come loose. All right. Just a simple knot. All right. Constriction knot. And that won't go anywhere. All right, so now I got the snare set. We got attached to a string. Okay, great thing about the string is I can attach this really high up in a tree, and the rabbit runs in any direction, it'll get hoisted up into the air. All right, and you just put this on a little post. This is very, very versatile way to set a snare. Let me show you. This is called a fisherman's snare, and I didn't invent this. I learned this from a guy with a channel called NL Ghost Wolf, a friend of mine, Charlie. So, but this is a great idea, and it's got many ways to apply it. Of course, it takes it a couple more seconds to set up. But I mean, what I just did here, you do, in front of a coffee table, in front of the television, and you set a bunch of these up in the evening, so they're all ready to go when you go snaring. Anyway, let me show you how this gets attached. All right, I got a stick like this. See, I got my finger behind it, so I can't, right? The little stick will catch up on my finger. You put a little, cracker open like that, right? So by doing that, the stick will accept the wire like that. I don't know how easy that is to see. Okay, I just twang that thing. All right, so it allows you to set it up really easily. Sorry there, I had to let go of the camera to mess with it. But now I got that set up just right. All right, so hopefully I'll get one in there. And you can see how it's just got this little thing on there, right? So if the rabbit puts any sort of fight up, this whole stick will just come out, or the little wire will come out of the little wedge I got it jammed in. And if he runs in any direction, because it's attached above, right, and I got it on there with a constricting knot, so that won't come off. The rabbit can only go up, right? If he runs this way, he goes up, right? And ideally, he'll get caught up in the tree there and not come back down, right? So it's a neat little trick. It can be a bit, it's hard to do with one hand while you're filming, but it's actually very easy to set up two-handed. Good little trick. So I got one more snare to set, and then I'll be done this little section here. All right, so just to review, I got this one here with the sort of built-in crossbar. I love this system. I put a second one, that same style right here. Little chin lifter there, right? This one here, I got the fisherman set up here, where I got a little snare jammed into a wedge and a stick, with the stick tied on to some bank line, some strong string, 200-pound test, 200-pound breaking string up above, like that, with a constricting knot, which will not come loose. And I got one over here, which is just your sort of standard, you know, we got a stick and the snare attached to the stick. A little bit too tight there. Let's fix that. That's pretty good. All right, so we got a nice little hole there. Maybe they'll come in that way. Who knows, right? A little extra something over the top here, just to make sure they don't go over. Duck bars, they call it. Here, hopefully they'll come down there. Anyway, so there we go. So we got 4 snares set, and in the center we got a pile of birch boughs that they like to nibble on the tips. Yeah, we'll see if they come back, see if they're here, and see what happens. Check them out tomorrow. All right, I think that's enough for this video. I can see my battery's just about dead anyway, so I hope you found it interesting. If you did, please like, share, subscribe. See you next time on Outdoors on the Cheap. Thanks for watching.